people are not motivated about work at all. So in that case, how do we figure out how to make this as routine and as simple as possible so you can get through it? Because your real energy, the real passion you have is writing poetry or doing art or doing something else. My belief is everybody has something that gives them energy, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is it just might not be at work.
Yeah.
And so part of this is when you're doing this analysis of energy drivers and drains, it's pretty foolish for us to think that our employer can do everything to make us happy. Sometimes we have to break them apart and say, my employer can give me this part, but this other part I got to go find in my free time, or I got to build a hobby, or I can have a side gig. Like I know a lot of people who are, I call them builders. They're 0 to 1 people. They can get something, an idea, and make it real, right? But when they're in a startup for 4 or 5 years, and now it's been built, and now it's about scaling, it's a different thing. They end up getting into the hobby of building airplanes or woodworking or gardening. And what they don't realize is that's their need to build, to create. And so when you're missing it, you got to figure out how to actually do it somewhere else. So like, even though this is about your career, I woke up one day and realized I thought I had 2 lives. I had a work life and I had a home life. And eventually I realized I only have 1 life. And I got to make sure I use all of that together. And so, to be honest, I only work with my friends. If you're not my friend, it's pretty hard to work with me. And if I don't know you, we have to become friends before I can work with you. It's weird. It's very unconventional, but I enjoy my work because I get to work with my friends.
A lot of the things that you mentioned remind me of a book that I've read a few years ago, a little bit of the pop psychology book, but has some cool ideas, Ikigai.
Yep.
Where they basically studied the people that live longer. Surprisingly, some of them are in my country of origin, Greece,
Yes.
island of Ikaria, where they noticed that people keep working until they die. That was one of the first things, but that they also do activities that keep them in a flow state. So it reminded me a little bit of what I read there, but also the flow theory. And I wanted to ask you, for that book, have you been inspired by other theories or other opinions?
Yeah. So there's 3 or 4 of them. That one is flow. I am a big proponent of flow. I am personally very centered on when things are frustrating and when I'm bored, knowing the difference between the two and knowing I have to take different actions. And so I'm very sensitive to that. And as you think of individuals, you got to think about where they are on that and the flow state, right? And how to get them into flow state. Because once they get into flow, it's all like, it just happens, right? If you don't know flow theory, you should look it up. Another one that's interesting to me is StrengthsFinders. I don't like it because it emphasizes your strengths, but I realized I've been doing StrengthsFinders for maybe 25 years. StrengthsFinders by Gallup.
Okay.
They have 34 traits, and one of my traits is I'm an individualizer. I'm a maximizer. I like to know people, and I want to know how they work so I can help get the most out of them, right? That's kind of what I think makes me a good manager. But they give you 34 traits. And my top 10 traits might be in a different position in the 10, but those 10 have never changed over my 25 years of taking that test. So every time I get it with a team, I say, let's do StrengthsFinders to get to know each other. But the most important ones are the bottom 5. The bottom 5 are the things you suck at, and you need to admit to it, and you need to actually figure out a strategy for it. Because here's the thing. One of the things I suck at is harmony. Getting along with everybody, because I don't believe that innovation or creation is a passive sport. It's a contact sport. We got to argue. We got to debate. It's respectful, but we got to debate. And so if you're not prepared to jump into the ring and debate, you're going to say, oh, I'm not inclusive. But the moment you actually try to make me inclusive and make me have harmony, you destroy 3 of my biggest strengths. You negate them. You actually neuter them from me. And so all of a sudden, the whole notion of you need to get better at this is like, no, this is who I am. This is how I'm wired. How do you accept me for that, as opposed to trying to make me do shit that I suck at? And I'm a big proponent of when I coach people, we do StrengthsFinders, but I get them to say, here's the bottom 5 things. Here's what you suck at. And the first thing they go like, well, I'm not that bad at it. I'm like, no, you hate to do this. And they start to realize, I really do. And then you start to think about it. What do you do to compensate for it? When you go in for a job interview and it has basically these criteria and it's part of your bottom 5, you negotiate that out of the job description, because otherwise you will get fired, right?